Welcome everybody to the first edition of the Aebrand and Sustainability Forum today at our Sustainable Tower here at IE University. My name is Carla Samso, and I'm the Associate Dean of our Marketing, Communications, and Talent Programs here at IE University. And I'm delighted to be here today as your Master of Ceremony as well. IE Business School and Aebrand have joined efforts to discuss the latest trends in branding and sustainability, inviting international experts from all around the world, from top companies from all around the world, from Coca-Cola to Wallbox Chargers, to Banco Santander, Saffron Brand Consultants, the Craftery, and Q Collective. Welcome, all of you, and thank you so much for being here with us today. IE Business University and Aebrand have joined forces today to discuss the latest trends in sustainability and branding, okay? And we are very, very excited because today we are located at the IE Sustainable Tower. I think that for many of you, this is the first time that you're here in this building. And I just want to share some quick facts about this sustainable experience as well. This is a building that has 35 floors. It has 180 meters tall, and it also has 50,000 square meters. It's one of the tallest campuses in the world. It's actually the third tallest campuses in the world, but it's also one of the most sustainable buildings here in Madrid, in Spain, and also one of the most sustainable campuses in the world. Now, today we're not going to talk about IE, we're not just going to talk about Aebrand, which is the Asociación Española de Branding. Today we're going to talk about why branding and why sustainable branding matters, okay? So the first thing that we all need to understand today is what is actually a sustainable brand. A sustainable brand, it's a brand that integrates within its strategy and its operations issues that have to do with environment, with the economical part, and also with the social part, okay? So one of the reasons we're going to talk about this today is because of some of the data I'm going to show you in just 1 minute. The first thing, 90% of CEOs, according to the latest Forbes study, say that sustainability is fundamental for success. Number two, 86% of consumers want companies to stand for social issues. This is very important, and this is a data that we got from Shelton Group. But I think that the most relevant number that I want to share with you today is that Generation Z and Millennials, which are the main consumers of all our brands and companies, products and services today, actually would spend more money on a product or service if it comes from a sustainable brand. And this is data that comes from Nielsen. So these two things are very, very relevant. I just mentioned an example of why IE University is also a sustainable brand. And I also want to share today that Aebrand is trying to focus and also push and really help brands here in Spain to develop sustainable brands, to develop the right positioning, the right branding strategy towards sustainability as well. So today, how does the agenda look like? And I'm sure all of you have read a little bit about it when you registered to the event. We're going to have two great keynote speakers, okay, that I will introduce very shortly. We're also going to have a discussion panel where we're going to see different examples and best practices of sustainability and sustainability branding. And this panel is going to be led by Cristina Vicedo, that I will introduce her shortly. And last but not least, we will be having an award ceremony to also reward the best practices in sustainable branding here with the top brands in Spain, okay? So now, I would like to introduce our first keynote speaker, Michael Birking. Michael, thank you so much for being here. Michael actually is based between New York and London, and he is the CEO of Q Strategic Operating Unit, and please bear with me, this is a Japanese word, Hakuhoro DY Holdings. Michael is very, very well known in the marketing and branding industry because actually he was the founder and creator of the concept brand valuation. He has worked in Interbrand since the beginning of his career in 1987, and later on he worked in Omnicom Group and also in Acer Inc. And he also founded his marketing and branding company back in 2010 when he created the Red Pig Group. So Michael, thank you so much for being here with us today. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Do I have a clicker? It's not working. All right, they're going to, okay. bear with me because I've got a lot of slides in a very short space of time, and so I'm going to have to give a signal when they shift through. I also wrote out, this is not a speech I actually have given before, so I wrote out a lot of notes, but such is my eyesight at my advanced age, I can't actually read them, so I'm going to just hopefully cover it all off, but maybe occasionally just sort of look down in case I'm going wrong. 35 years ago, I was the CEO of Interbrand. We were a new company, and we were going out of business. We were really struggling, and we needed to do something, and lo and behold, we came up with this idea of valuing brands. And I mention it only because I never envisaged that the world of branding would become the world that it is. And I think one of the reasons why it's become the world that it is because we took a very bold approach in how to value a brand. We could have essentially just attributed certain legal rights to the concept of branding, trademarks being the obvious one, and the values that we would have put on brands would have been very low. But we took a view that brands had the right, actually they didn't, but we claimed that they had the right to capture most of the business value of organizations that had a brand. And we believed that over time, every organization would have a brand. And so essentially, nearly 80% of business value suddenly got attributed to brands. And for the first time, the financial community started taking an interest in brands. Before that, CFOs, banks all just regarded advertising and marketing as a black hole in which you poured money and was essentially a liability. And overnight, we shifted the liability into an asset. And that's why we're here today, because, or at least we'd be here under other pretenses to save the planet. It wouldn't be brands and sustainability, it would be people and sustainability or all sorts of other intangible assets. But as one of my favorite superheroes, Spider-Man, says, with great power comes great responsibility. And so because we imbued such power in a brand owes it to all of its stakeholders and the world to actually do more than its bit to sustain the world. And that is what we're here today to talk about. I'm sorry, I'm not quite here yet, so forgive me. But the purpose of my title is creativity rather than branding, because I believe that to create powerful brands, you need powerful creativity. And therefore, by talking about creativity, and I'll be giving examples of creativity and sustainability, also brands and sustainability, it's a promotion of creativity that I also feel very, very strongly about. And my organization that I'll describe in a moment is indeed that. But also because I've been in this world for 40 years or so, nearly. And I don't think it's been a great time, quite frankly, for creative industries. I don't think the advertising industry is stronger today relative to the business world as it was 40 years ago. I think we've lost out very badly to particularly the McKinseys and the Accentures of this world, who have done an excellent job in developing themselves on the back of their professionalism and their energy and their aggressiveness in a good way. I believe, however, that a creative mindset and the idea of design thinking, which is an idea that's promoted by one of our companies called IDEO, is an incredibly important concept for our future, our sustainable future. And therefore, the business that we set up 5 or 6 years ago, Q, which in Japanese means number 9 and also means globe, was to be a source of creativity which propels the economy and society forward. And for me, having been in the branding business for so long, coming up with a purpose, and by the way, it was a colleague of mine, Keith Yamashita, that came up with it, not me, but he persuaded me that we had to go beyond the normal wording of brands and companies and actually have a much bolder purpose. And that is the purpose that we coined at the time. Our values are listed here. the idea of truth. I'm going to come back to truth because I think truth and sustainability are inextricably linked. Humanity, democracy, balance, unity. We believe in a global community, creativity, obviously, competence and action. And this is what we try and live every day. We formed Q based very much along the lines of the parent company who sponsors Q, which is Hakuhodo DY Holdings. This is a company that was founded 125 years ago, literally and really by one of the last samurai who, when his world was disappearing in the face of industrial Japan, decided to hang up his sword and pick up a pen and start promoting the traditional and important values of Japanese society that he was frightened were going to disappear. He wasn't against industrialization, he was just against it at any cost. And that created a spirit in the organization to which I'm now a part, which is essentially about humanity and creativity and tradition. And therefore, in the building of Q, we want to honor that history, and that is how we started it. These are some of the things that we do, transforming people and organizations, innovating systems and products, digital strategy design, changing behavior, shaping beliefs and policy, designing spaces and cities. We have events companies, digital media companies, and advertising companies. But essentially, we're trying to redefine the purpose of all of these organizations in the work that we do. And these are the main companies that we have in our group. You'll recognize some of these names. Maybe IDEO, SY Partners, Sidley, maybe not one or two of the others. But we're a growing business of about 3,000 people, and we are ambitious. We also founded the company on a Japanese principle called Seikatsu Sha, which is a principle that our parent company's been following for 50, 60 years. And this is a policy of looking at people not as consumers or users, but as human beings, which of course today, and much of what you'll be hearing this evening, not just from me, but from everyone, is this concept of humanity. And it's second nature to us now, but it probably wasn't 50, 60 years ago. And this idea of treating everybody with humanity has been something that's endemic to the organization to which we're a part and was easy for us to adopt. And it wasn't just about the way that you look at other people, it also permeates the way that we create things. We have this idea of the well concept, where we gather round with people, both our own people and clients, and create, and you'll see an example of that shortly, as opposed to what the Japanese call the river concept, where you look at consumers on the other side of a river and hope and guess, irrespective of your research, whether your messaging is actually going to work. And that is a very, very important principle that underpins Q. And the other one, which was coincidental, was this one, which is obviously a big topic for this evening, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, a blueprint to achieve a better future for all people and the world, which was set up at the same time that we set up Q, and set up as its target 2030. And as we all know, is something that is now gaining momentum all the time. And all the examples that I'm going to be showing are reflective of these Sustainable Development Goals, and they underpin the very essence of Q itself. In that Sustainable Development Goal, they talk about all people. And the first example I'm going to give today, change slide please, is Acer, which is a company by accident I ended up becoming the chief marketing officer of for a couple of years, a few years back. It was an accident, but they are still a very dear client of mine. And I've called this example preservation by self-preservation, because ultimately organizations are going to be no good to this goal of sustainability unless they are strong themselves. There's a saying in English that charity begins at home, and even though that's become a bit outdated now, the reality is you need to be strong to be able to do what it is that you need to do. you can't actually apply that principle to individual human beings, because overpopulation is one of the reasons why we have the trouble that we have right now. But I think for organizations, it's totally valid. And this is an example of how a company decided to look at sustainability to preserve itself, to then help preserve the planet. Because really, until relatively recently, to about 4 or 5 years ago, Acer had a terrible time. The PC industry, which really they served, had been in decline, or rather had been commoditized. And they were really at the commodity end of it and were really struggling. And about 5 or 6 years ago, they were in grave danger of going out of business. So one of the things that I did with the new CEO, Jason Chen, who's a dear friend of mine, was to say, look, we haven't got much money, so we can't market our way out of this. We haven't got the money for big campaigns. But what we do have is we have the richest DNA of practically any company I've ever come across. It's extraordinary how this Taiwanese company was built up on very, very human values by Stan Shi, the founder. The idea of breaking down barriers between people and technology and making equipment, products for the many and not for the few. This idea of the democratization of technology to improve lives. And it's a very good company and had a remarkable CSR record. But I said CSR, sadly, is just a piece of legal reporting that nobody takes seriously. Let's look at our very DNA and the amazing things that this company does, and let's rebuild our brand on the back of that. And we came up with a provocation: what if every product that we make is a solution to the world's issues? And on the back of that, we came up with this project called Project Humanity, which we launched about 4 or 5 years ago to encourage employees and suppliers to make a positive change to our environment beyond just, classic measurement indices. And the initiative engages Acer employees around the world to take action, as every small change can make a great impact. And this is what we launched, keep it going. And the important starting off point is that when the leaders of the company started to promote this, it didn't just come across as a hollow wish or jumping on a bandwagon. People who were already proud of the role in society that their company was playing, they were very upset or disappointed by its continuing failure at that particular time. But when this leadership team, and it was a new leadership team, came in and really ramped this up, it was believable. It went to the very core of the business, and therefore it had great impact and great energy because of that. There are all sorts of individual tactics that we use, and I don't have the time to go into all of these. Some of them were somewhat small, things like no bottled water and lighting replaced with energy-saving LEDs and so on and so forth, and a lot of challenges. But ultimately, it permeated the whole business, and Project Humanity became the Acer brand. It was a bit of luck that the color of the company was green, which I think was lucky. I don't know whether Stan, when he founded the company 45 years ago, was already ahead on that particular one, but it actually did help. And it then moved into other things like Every Decision Counts, which is, again, a set of deliverables on every decision. And then in the very making of all Acer products, there was the idea of every idea counts, how sustainable materials can be used. Every single aspect of the designing and the manufacturing process was changed. And it's had a remarkable impact. I mean, here are just some of the statistics. Again, everybody throws a lot of statistics out, but they really were very, very material for this company and for doing what it needs to do in society. It was a very simple branding process. Again, many of you will know these sort of process. You start with your mission, you move to your employees, then to your suppliers and partners, then your customers, and then the wider stakeholder community. And now there will not be any major presentation to any of these groups without humanity being a big, big part of that particular presentation. So in summary, this is where I'm sort of, in summary. I mean, there's three of the UN Sustainable Development Goals that I think that this covers off. The main one being responsible consumption and manufacturing, production, but also other ones, such as quality education. Acer is the greatest supplier of Chromebooks, which is the number one PC that's used in all schools around the world. And they provide it at a very, very attractive price. If there's no Acer, then it does impact education. If there's no Acer, the democratization of technology, that providing it's done in a sustainable way, is unbelievably important for moving people out of poverty, which of course is another UN sustainable goal. It doesn't happen. And so at the end of the day, this idea that was born out of necessity, out of the fact there wasn't a lot of money, but there was real value, became a piece of self-preservation that has a sustainable agenda for the planet. The next example I've got, is very different. This is something that we're doing with Oprah Winfrey. She acquired Weight Watchers 2 or 3 years ago, and we've been working with her very talented team and her on this shifting of attitude away from just losing weight to wellness, which I think is the third UN sustainable goal. You know, skinny, healthy is the new skinny, I think is one of the ways of putting it. Could we change the slide? This is Oprah in one of our offices with my dear colleague Susan Schumann, and it's been a really extraordinary project that keeps us still very, very busy. It starts with a purpose. We inspire healthy habits for real life. And there's a number of techniques and things that we've used, all of which fit under the heading of branding, the new branding of Weight Watchers. And one of the things I particularly thought was impressive was this idea of a filter, a brand filter, that essentially is, if you like, a checklist on all core decisions that are taken, and the way in which every decision that Weight Watchers is taking is gauged against its 3-year goals as an organization. This was actually the technique that was used to actually remove about 70% of all artificial colorings and flavorings from their product line. But it's used not just for product line, but for also campaigns and other forms of communication. The mission and the purpose permeates all aspects of the business. Again, you branders out there will understand this. So, you know, new logo and a new lexicon, new brand expression, the way consumer products are developed and presented, member experiences, physical spaces, rewards programs, partnerships, and other internal capabilities. It again became the mantra of the whole organization. And specifically on physical spaces and digital spaces, there was a great change. We shifted what were really somewhat uninspiring locations into wellness centers with a much more upbeat set of designs in terms of meeting rooms if you want one-on-one counseling, but also studios where all sorts of activities, and particularly fitness activities, can take place. And in a digital environment, all sorts of digital techniques, products were launched that essentially were around the measurement and the reporting of your performance in terms of becoming a more healthy human being, and also rewards programs that we could stimulate online through more activity. And this, I think, is a very good example of an organization that hadn't started out in a sustainable positioning, although you might argue that losing weight could be that, but has actually repurposed itself, again, going to facets of its DNA and just looking at the society around and making sure that it becomes even more relevant than it had been in the past. The next example is a little bit similar in some respects, and it's Nike, a business that we know very well. And in fact, my colleague Farah is with me this evening, and she used to run Girl Effect for Nike in Africa in promoting female values. We know Nike very, very well. But Nike, I don't think, would mind me saying that they didn't start out their life as a sustainable company. And over the years, and I mean, I only have to think of a brand such as EcoAlf here in Spain, which is this remarkable company that started out, I believe, using fishermen's nets to produce clothing and come up with some quite wondrous lines. I mean, I love their line, "There is no planet B." I think it's just fantastic. But it's just a fabulous example, but it's not an example I can take any credit for. And I can't really take credit for this either, but at least one of my organizations can. But Nike is taking sustainability incredibly seriously and very effectively. This is one project that we work very closely with them on. And this is a shoe that was designed called the Space Hippie. And I have a little video on this one.
To save ourselves.
You'd be crazy not to have anxiety around climate change right now.
We have this optimistic urgency that we have to get after things.
We are on a journey to make the most sustainable shoe ever.
We have been spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to reduce our carbon footprint.
We kept going back to this phrase called in-situ utilization.
There's this idea in space exploration that if you're going to fly to the moon, fly to Mars, and stay there and do something, you have to create things with what you find there. Say there's no resupply mission coming to Mars, there's no resupply mission coming to Earth either.
Noah came in, one of the great insights he had was, hey, what do we have laying around?
What if waste becomes our future feedstock? What if it is actually the material that we use?
And that's really where the idea of Space Hippie was born out of.
We just started grabbing different things we already had and putting them together. We were looking at everything and saying, oh, it's like super spacey, but it's also really rough. There was something about it that was so different than anything I had seen us doing.
It made our factory partners very nervous.
Hey, are you serious? Are we gonna really making the shoes like that?
When they look weird, it's because they're made of trash.
We are working on what it means to create a fully closed-loop economy.
Reuse of materials so that we aren't causing more damage to the planet.
Sustainability at Nike, though, is not new. We divert over 1 billion plastic bottles a year.
And so there's this duality of high performance but low impact.
If we don't start now doing something, then we might not have that future to actually get to.
Our job is also to help protect the future of sport.
Our job is to leave the world a better place.
Space Hippie was a great success. The shoe sold out in no time. We'll move on. But another very important thing for us is that our company that was working with Nike on this, Godfrey Dadich, are also documentary filmmakers. And telling the story is unbelievably important. And it's unbelievably important at a time when, as a resident of the US, and have been for 22 years, it's a very traumatic time to be listening to the news, to actually try to distill the appallingness of the national dialogue that we are facing. We launched with this company a project. We took a page out after the last election in the New York Times and essentially created this concept called the new editorial, which is essentially to find a way of creating the new editors in telling stories, because digitalization has taken them away, and as a result we have an unfiltered set of stories that come out, and this has essentially helped to fuel the whole fake news concept that we are hell-bent on fighting. And I think this is a very, very important part of sustainability. I can show you, there's examples I'm not showing you today. I mean, we do a lot of work with Ford in Los Angeles on electronic vehicles and urban mobility. I'm not showing that. But a very, very important part of the success of branding and sustainability is going to come from our ability to actually tell the story in a way that people feel it's cutting through the clutter of awfulness that we're having to deal with. And therefore, we were very proud of the work that we did. This is just a trailer video for many other pieces of work on Space Hippie. And, sorry, you can move the slide on. And that, I think, is, as branders, unbelievably important. I know that every organization is going to do a better job than it has done in the past. But I'm not convinced that every organization is going to get that message across in the right way. And that's where I think we all have to work very, very hard, and I think is a very important point. Can we move on? We also, as an organization, have faced the idea of conflict. We have this, you know, in the ad agency world, you have conflict problems all the time. You can't work for Coke and you can't work for Pepsi, and of course, we understand that. But the world does move on, and I'm not suggesting that we work for Coke and Pepsi, by the way, so please forgive me for that example. But I do think that our whole idea of Q as a collective, this idea of a collaborative spirit, has to permeate the way that we work with ourselves and the way that we work with clients. And one of the brilliant projects that IDEO have created is the CoLab, which is, they look at specifically around the circular economy, getting groups of people together, our own people, clients that compete with one another, but to essentially to create peer groups to tackle some of the thornier issues. And I've got a short video here that explains just a process they put together specifically on food efficiency with a group that came to CoLab. Please.
Why are we here and what are we doing? That has been a journey throughout the days where every now and then you ask yourself that question.
It has been an extraordinary week. We have all of these extraordinary member companies that are here really looking at how we can be re-envisioning the food system and applying circular principles to a regenerative future.
We're here to take a very audacious but also very intangible concept of circular economy. We're trying to take that to the next level and actually make it much more tangible and concrete.
Circularity is so closely linked with innovation, and it's innovation that's the path forward for us as we face really daunting challenges in every aspect of our economy.
The huge light bulb was the build something, build a prototype. It generates so much more positive feedback than just an idea which generally gets crushed or naysayed.
Traditionally, talking is so much easier. It's easier to sit around the table, and we found ourselves doing that at several points. And so breaking out of that and actually starting to build was kind of a revelatory moment for all of us.
The experience has been really intense and really energizing, and I think really eye-opening, and it sounds a bit like a cliche maybe to say that, but I think that the fact that so many of us spend a lot of our time thinking through these systemic problems, but we do so in our own companies or in our own organizations, and I think the beauty of this is that we're coming together with different companies, different participants, different skill sets to together co-create basically a solution. I think there are very few and special opportunities that you can have to do that.
And so that's what's really most exciting for me, is to be able to work with, potential competitors in this space, and instead of competitors, it's peers. And that shift has really been kind of foundational for me.
Moving on to cities, this is work that's done by a company that's a partner to Q called Gale out of Copenhagen. But I'm sure some of you have done work in this particular area. I know that Jacob has, sitting down there. But sustaining urban living is another key UN Sustainable Development Goal, and this organization is the leading urban planner. They've just produced this book called Soft City, but essentially a lot of their work is focused around what they call the Urban Belonging Project, which is what is the socially sustainable city of tomorrow. And I haven't got time to go into this evening, but I just have, if you just look over the next slide, please. I mean, these are just some of the projects that they've been working on relatively recently. You know, Beijing, Rome, Houston, Bogota, Philly, London. You can read these yourself, and there's one more, I think. But if you go on a tour of Copenhagen with Hella, who runs Gale, and she explains how they've widened the sidewalks, how they've connected them to the parks, how buildings join, how streets have been widened, and she has this wonderful way of showing the way that it was and the way that it is. It's really inspiring. You know, if you go to New York, and even though it's still, I wouldn't say the most civilized place on earth, but if you go to Times Square, at least it's more civilized than it was. If you looked at the pedestrianization of Broadway, for example, that's one of their particular projects. If you go to Sydney and you look at the introduction of the trams on George Street, it's transformed the city centre. And the role of branding is absolutely vital in this particular sphere of our lives. I think it's possibly the most important area. And it's an area, again, because of the power of branding and what we've created, it has the ability to make a huge difference. Just to wrap up, I started out by saying that brands, through an act of piracy, had actually captured most of business value. And that's the case. But the thing I would like to urge you to all do, and to just remember the IDEO example there, is just to think about the way in which you create, the way in which you work, the peer groups that you look to create, the conflicts which you look both to create in terms of in a positive way, but also to remove by great answers. I do believe wholly in creativity. I am doing my very, very little bit to fly the flag for creativity and to try and promote the idea of design thinking and creative solutions through brands for these appallingly difficult problems that we face, and specifically sustainability. There are countless examples, and people that will give the examples better than I can. But what I can say is that I believe that branding is pivotal, and we all have to do our bit. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I think you answered us very well the question of why sustainable branding really matters, right? And I think we've seen very relevant examples coming from different industries, from different countries, and also with relevant global brands. Well, I'm very happy to introduce one of the most exciting parts of our unique forum today, the discussion panel, where we're going to see best practices coming from different industries and from leading experts that come from companies all around the world. First, I would like to introduce you to Jacob Benbonnen. Please, while I give your names, come to our stage with me. So, Jacob Benbonnen is the CEO of Safran. I don't know if many of you may know, but Safran recently has developed and worked on the new Facebook company's brand, Meta, so congratulations on that. Today we also have with us Enrique Arribas. He's the head and vice president of corporate marketing and brand at the International Group of Santander Bank. Number 3, we also have here with us Esther Morillas. She's the marketing director for Coca-Cola Iberia. And well, iUniversity has a very close relationship with her because she was also one of the co-founders of our Masters in Digital Marketing. And today we will also have connected from home, and that you will see him also in the screen, Masoud Ravani.
Masoud Rabbani is the CCO, this means the Chief Commercial Officer of Wallbox Chargers. Just FYI, for those of you that haven't used or heard about Wallbox in the past, they started as a startup, as many of you may know, that has won several and very relevant prizes over the past year in very important tech conferences around the world. And they also won the South Summit competition here with us too. And I would also like to call here to the stage Cristina Vicedo. Cristina Vicedo is the president of Aebrand. It's mainly because of her that this amazing forum is taking place today. She's also the founder and CEO of Sincerely, and she is also the academic director of our Masters in Marketing and Corporate Communications, both full-time and part-time. Here today we actually have some students with us here sitting over there. Thank you so much for being with us today. So today, as I said, this discussion panel is going to be about best practices and sustainable branding. I will leave you guys to the floor and then I'll come back. Thank you.
¿Dónde están? Sorry, where are the micros? The microphones? You have them? Okay. Technology. Excuse me. Thank you all. Thank you, Carla, for your words. Really very nice. Hi, Masoud. You can listen to us very well?
You're perfectly fine. Thank you.
Good. I think today we have a great opportunity to talk about brands and sustainability from two different perspectives. We have clients like Masoud, Esther, and Enrique, and we have also Jacob, which is a branding consultancy. So I think we can talk a little bit of what is going on about branding. I think that in the last years, and probably you agree with me or not, so this is an open discussion, the branding processes has changed quite a lot. I think we are facing many different areas like sustainability, like mobility, like health, and I'm going to go through all of them, but which is really for me amazing is that the brand is becoming like a really transformational asset for businesses and people. And I want to center the discussion on that, and I will go through several questions to try to set up how we can face it. Because, for example, a study says that 3 people out of 4 trust more brands than institutions or companies. And for me, I think this is a great opportunity for those we are working on branding. So what do you think, for example, I'm going to start by clients, Jacob, if you don't mind. Masoud, Enrique, Esther, the brand is really a main discussion within your business strategies. Is in always you are talking about that when you deal about your goal businesses? Is the brand really a strategy branding asset?
Who starts?
Feel free, this is going to be an open discussion.
Well, I think definitely brand has a very relevant role to play nowadays in companies. In Santander, for instance, Santander is a key asset I mean, it's an inseparable part of our business. I think nobody can conceive in Santander expanding our business without taking into account the role that the brand have to play. And in fact, I would say brand and culture are as both sides of the same coin for Santander. Culture, brand together, and well, just, I mean, in 2004, we had more than 40 brands around the world, 40. The value of the Santander brand by them was so small in comparison to that of the Santander Group. Santander brand was just here in Spain, but then we have another 30, 40 brands. Now Santander ranks 74th in the Interbrand 100 Best Global Brands, which is, well, I think we all can feel proud of having 2 Spanish companies among the 100 most valued brands in the world. And since then, since 2004, we have traveled quite far in terms of value creation for the brand, in terms of relevance. And so, yes, definitely brand is so strong for us. And in fact, having such a strong brand allows us to better engage with our audiences, to raise the proudness of belonging among employees, even to protect us during the crisis. No? So I hope we will continue to develop value for the brand.
Esther, Masood, what do you think? Do you agree? I suppose that you agree. Give us examples if you want to, regarding how you really tackle the brand as a very business important asset.
Well, in our case, it's actually very easy because our most iconic brand is just the same name of the corporation. So you know that we have more than 300 brands, but actually the Coca-Cola is our most iconic one. So it's definitely the most important asset for us in the company, and that's the way we live. So for us, brands more and more, what consumers are demanding now, it's really providing them experiences. So that's, if you ask me, for example, I can give you some examples. How are we trying to target our consumers, especially the younger ones that are more and more demanding? Yeah, we need to provide them with experiences, not just what we do, but what we say and what we make them to live. So a good example for us would be, for example, our Coca-Cola Music Experience platform, and how we make young people to live through music, together, to enjoy together around the music. And it was not just a campaign, so we're moving from just one-shot campaign or TVC campaign to provide them with experiences, enjoying their life with their friends. And this specific program goes, it's not just one event that we do once a year, but it's a program that allows us to communicate with the young people in their language, in their platform, because it's mainly a digital program. Yeah, and providing them a lot of experiences. So that's the way that we treat brand, and definitely the most important asset that we have in the Coca-Cola company. It's all about brands.
Thank you, Esther. Masood, what do you think? You are the younger brand, I think, in the table.
Yeah, so thanks. First of all, apologies that I couldn't be there in person. Thanks for the IU production team for making it happen that I could join remotely. Yeah, I mean, we are a fairly young brand, so we as a company, we're just 6 years old. I think it's very fair to say that branding is critical for us. You know, if you think about that, most of our customers, you know, they're doing this for the first time in their lives, right? So they're driving an EV for the first time in their lives. They're probably charging a vehicle for the first time in their lives. So it's very, very critical to have a brand that, you know, gives them trust, confidence, takes away a little bit of their anxiety that they might have when they switch from you know, the vehicle they've been driving for 10, 20, whatever amount of years to this new thing that all of a sudden, you know, you have to worry about charging and from getting to A to B, right? So that's one aspect of it. I think, you know, just the fact that ourselves are new, are quite fresh and young, and as a product or as a solution, we are quite new to our customers, right? The second part of it is you know, I think where our brand is really, really critical is to differentiate a little bit from, you know, what is purely your charger, which is a device that can charge your car, to what is a charging solution and energy management, and, you know, you not having to worry about this vehicle or this device in your house, which all of a sudden is duplicating your energy consumption and everything that comes with it, right? So it can be quite a complex topic for users, and I think our brand and what we do with our brand and the messages we send just simplifies all of that for users. Again, majority of those users being first-time users, and essentially, of course, for me as a chief commercial officer, this is quite important because it really, really helps to drive our sales and to drive EV adoption, which is critical for us.
So, Jacob, how can we tell them? Do you think?
It's obvious that any successful brand is a brand that has the person, the human being at the center. And it's obvious that brands, at the end of the day, it's all about people. They're all about people. And you build brands, successful brands are the brands that are authentic and relevant. And if you're authentic and relevant, it's because you really think about the person. You really think about your consumer, your employee, society at large.
Wow.
And colocato and
Sorry.
And society at large, and the way you, and at the end of the day, the way you build a successful brand is inevitably about all the intangible assets that you can convey to your different audiences. At the end of the day, who can claim, I mean, I'm sure Santander is a much better bank than BBVA or than Bankinter or than Caixa. But at the end of the day, the reason why I like Santander more than Bankinter or more than La Caixa is because a brand, the Santander brand, is a promise of an experience delivered. And it's all about how you build the experience, and it's all about that promise has to be actually constructed through the experience. And this is how you have to build a brand. And the way you differentiate yourself from the others is really through that experience, and really through making that promise tangible. How do you differentiate today? You're not going to differentiate on price. You're not going to differentiate on product. You're not going to differentiate on, say, the telco. I remember some years ago it was, no, we have the best coverage. Now everybody has the same coverage. No, we have the cheapest. Now everybody's the cheapest. Call it MásMóvil or call it Telefónica. At the end of the day, you can get a deal that is as good as the other. The best way to stand out is by giving back to society what the society has given you. And today, what's really, really important has to do with ESG. And ESG, sustainability, is a very important thing. And sustainability has to do with the E of the environment. But also, one has to have the S of social and the G about governance. And companies, organizations today have to have, at the very core of what they stand for, of their promise, these three letters, E, S, G. And the reason why, as we saw in Michael's presentation, no, it wasn't Michael's, it was the introduction
62
presentation,
persons.
Consumers will be more inclined to buy from a sustainable brand than not. And so one starts to think that what makes me tick as a consumer is not the price, is not the coverage, is not whether I have an ATM or I don't have an ATM, is whether there's a certain degree of connection between what my interests are and what the organization's interests are. And this is the relevance element of brand that organizations are more and more taking into consideration.
Let me jump to the next question, because it was regarding sustainability and obviously this SDGs 2030 that, as Michael was presenting, and also because Carla mentioned clearly that the number is around 60 to 66% of consumers that are really prepared to pay more for those brands who really show that they are helping in a cause that matters for them. It's not really that the product is sustainable itself, which is a discussion. It's that even the company is just working or doing something which is related with a cause that matters for consumers. And I think that's key. And it's key, as you were saying, Jacob, not only for the social, but the governance and how we do it. And both of you, the three of you, are in three sectors which are really challenging. And I am having a direct question to each of you. First of you was going to be Enrique, but you started first, so I'm going to ask Esther first. I'm changing roles. You are beverage, Coca-Cola, healthy trends, and sustainability is one of the most important ones. How we eat, how we drink, what is food, to finish with poverty or for hungry. What Coca-Cola is doing, what Coca-Cola is facing all that.
Yeah, we are at the heart of all the debates, actually. And we don't avoid any of them, actually, and we really want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So we actually do a lot of things Let me give you some examples. When it comes to sustainability and our packaging, yeah, it's true that we, in our production, we use a lot of plastics, but we have a lot of commitment to give back to the society somehow. No? So we have programs such as Mares Circulares, where we have cleaned up more than 200 beaches around Spain. We have impacted 70,000 people around it. More than 10,000 volunteers working on that.
It's gone. Technology is
yeah. Now it's working. Maybe someone thought that is not quite interesting what I'm telling about. I hope that's not the case. So yeah, we were counting with a lot of young people, volunteers helping and making them conscious of what we need to give back to nature. And what is more important, we were talking before around economy, circular economy, and actually this was a great collaboration between the public and private companies working together to really give it back to the nature, what we are using. That's in Spain, but overall in the company we can say today that we commit to give back more than 100% of the water that we use in both our beverage but also in our productions line. We have more than 15, let me say it properly, more than 50% of our, for example in Spain, Aquarius or our still beverage are already made of rPET, and our commitment is to go and increase that more and more. Globally, 30% of all the volume that we sell, it's made of recyclable PET. So, and our commitment is to increase that year by year, so we have very strict commitment for next year up to 2025, 2030, so that we really improve day by day, because it's actually really demanding for consumers. And then we are also at the heart of the debate when it comes to sugar and the obesity debate that we have around. Also, we have a lot of figures around that. Today in Spain, 62% of the beverages that we sell are low or 0 calories. And we have always, in all the brands that we put out there in the market, we always have a 0 sugar version, and also our commitment to improve formulations and also to have more smaller packaging. So we have now in Spain, and probably you've seen that already in the supermarket, the small cans. To reduce the sugar intake. We promote a lot of active lifestyle. We are present in more than 20,000 events locally to promote sport and healthy lifestyle. So we actually do a lot. But I mean, just because that's the way we believe, and also because that's consumers are demanding now. There is no other way to make it today than being a purposeful brand and really give it back to the society, what the society is giving to you. So yeah, a lot of things, a lot of data that we could put on the table.
Thank you, Esther. Enrique, I understand that for a bank, it has to be different. No? The biggest problem could be transparency, or to fight against all this, black hole regarding banks. What are you doing?
Well, yes, of course, we have our own problems. We don't have to struggle with sugar, but we have to struggle with so many problems. and I agree that it is not about brands being sustainable. It's about companies behaving in a sustainable and in a responsible way. No? In fact, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, Santander made the decision to split off what was called the sustainability department, to create with a new area called responsible banking, reporting directly to our chairman. And it was made to guarantee that the entire company complies with the ESG criteria, and that everything we do has this clear commitment and that works under this framework of responsibility and of course sustainability. No? And I think it was a very clever movement in order, because I mean, removing the sustainability department from the comms department was a clear message of commitment, no? And it was made mainly in order to avoid being perceived as a blah blah brand, no? And to real work on for the entire company to behave in the right way. In fact, just an example. Well, now we have clear public commitments about, of course, gender diversity, of course, ethical business, and of course, sustainability from the environmental point of view. But just an example, to me it was quite curious because during the last weeks, we have held very relevant negotiations with another large and international company for a very relevant business for the bank. And I would say that 90% of the conversation was around sustainability.
Wow.
And to me it was impressive being in that negotiations and talking about the standards of sustainability and responsibility that both companies must achieve for the deal to be done. I mean, without that standards of sustainability, no deal was possible. And I think it's a clear message, first, of the current moment that we all are living, second, of the society demands, and then how at least large companies are responding to that demands, no?
I like a lot what you said. It's not only a question of brands, it's probably a question of culture and companies, as Jacob was saying before. Masood, I said before you were the younger brand, and you are in a very complex area, probably the most sustainable in the core business, which is mobility, and it's for electricity mobility, and it's going to be, you know, cleaner, less emissions. What can you tell us in these points?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, there's, I guess, a couple of the SDG goals that are core to what we do. You know, whether it's clean energy and affordable energy, sustainable cities, climate action, or production. You know, those things are in our DNA, so to speak, right? But you know, there's still supply chain, there's still production, there's still our offices. You know, we still have to move around our employees. We have to fly around the world to do business, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of things that we need to do as a company to, you know, put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. Whereas our core business is contributing to sustainability, but that doesn't mean like the rest of us shouldn't stop there, right? So I think it's really, really critical in our company. So we are now, as we're growing as a company, actually starting a completely dedicated department just for SDG. Historically, there's, you know, has been a lot of work in our supply chain. So, you know, our manufacturing sites, our factories, making sure that our entire supply chain, every single component that we acquire and build and use for our chargers, to making sure that the entire supply chain is you know, recyclable stuff. Everything is being disposed correctly after it's used, and things of that nature. And as was just mentioned, this is actually becoming more and more critical when it comes to doing business, right? So when we speak to our clients, you know, they request certificates. There's, you know, ISO certifications, there's REACH, there's ROHS. So there's a lot of standards that you have to meet in the manufacturing for, you know, to even be able to do business with certain partners and certain clients. So it's really, really an ongoing topic, and more so, right? And then when it comes to us, you know, Wallbox, our employees, I can give some really, really cool examples, and you know, just showing by what we do as staff and as employees, how this really also helps our brand to be more genuine and more authentic, right? So, you know, all of our offices are cradle to cradle, so it's all recyclable material. You know, our headquarters in Barcelona is fairly new; it's just 2 years old. Everything there was built cradle to cradle. All of our fleet, the entire fleet of vehicles that we have, are either pure EVs, the vast majority, or some plug-in hybrids. You know, we give incentives to our employees to, when they purchase or lease vehicles, we give them extra incentive from the company, aside from, you know, the government incentives, whether it's vehicles, bikes, motorcycles, you know, whatever is electric and sustainable for them as mobility. We support them, so we drive more adoption there. You know, whenever you have a chance, welcome you to our headquarters in Barcelona. We probably have the biggest bi-directional charging solution installed in Spain, maybe one of the biggest in Europe. So what that means at our headquarter, we have what we call a bidirectional DC charger, which is a charger that can charge and discharge the vehicle. So we have 22 of those installed at our headquarter. They work in combination with 22 vehicles. The battery of one of those vehicles can power a house, an average house in Spain, by anywhere between 5 and 10 days, depends on how much you use your AC. So we have 22 of those, and we have 128 solar panels installed. So actually during the day when our employees come, 9 in the morning till 6 p.m., which is when we go into sort of peak consumption in terms of energy, our entire building works as self-consumption. So we use the energy that we get from the solar panels, we discharge all of the vehicles and power the building. And then at night when everybody goes home, the energy consumption goes down, not just in our building, but in general in the grid. That's when we start charging those vehicles. So we're actively contributing to balancing out the grid, not using too much energy when in general the pressure on the grid is high. So we're living and breathing our own products, and we depend on our own products every day to be able to charge our MacBooks and turn on the lights and use the elevators, etc. at the office. So not just that we're offering all these solutions to our clients, but we're actually using all of them on a daily basis at our office.
Thank you. Jacob, how can we help clients?
I want to start by saying something that really made me incredibly proud. For the last year or so, we have been working for an organization based in London that has a sole purpose, which is achieve the inclusion of handicapped people into society, into work. It's called the Valuable 500, the V500, and it's chaired by a blind woman, and everybody that is at the top team have a certain degree of handicap. And when we started working, we went and see, so the aim is to approach Fortune 500 companies that really contribute to create a fund to help people get into work. And I was going to say to my surprise, to my pride as a Spaniard, there was only one company from Spain that is part of the V500, and this company is Santander. Santander is a subscriber of the V500, so you were talking about the deal you were doing, about how important it was diversity and inclusion in the whole conversations you were doing with your potential or new partner. It reminded me of the sense of pride and how proud I was to see that we had one company, a company that I happen to know well, which is Santander, that is a signatory and contributes with money, because this is a for-profit organization and they ask you guys to put money. It was only one company from Spain. That company is Santander, which says a lot about what Santander is doing in terms of diversity, inclusion, sustainability, and everything. Coca-Cola in America is part of it, but not in Spain, obviously. And that is fundamental. I think organizations have to walk the talk. It's not about, you will remember a few years ago when corporate social responsibility was the word, everybody had to have a program. Nobody understood what CSR was, nobody understood, but they had some budget. And there was always someone in charge of CSR, which was like, I don't know what to do with this one, so give him CSR. Eventually, it's a bit like when Facebook and Instagram and Twitter started, everybody had to have a little F or a little bird or a little camera. They didn't know, they didn't have a proper social media apparatus or strategy, but they had to have an F underneath there somewhere. The reality is that today organizations have come to terms with the importance of what these all means, and they are serious about it, and we have to help them. Some of them we have to help them by showing them how important it is and how important society, and I want to use the word society, not just consumers, society wants and requires organizations to really take care of that, and help also articulate their ideas, because sometimes they have good ideas, but they don't really articulate it into a proper strategy. And obviously Santander is doing it, and it's amazing what the anecdote you just described, that an important part of the negotiation had to do with things that were not even in the agenda 10 years ago. Not that but these were not even on the agenda. And I think it's quite refreshing that we have Spanish companies doing this stuff, and what we have to do is try to infect other Spanish companies to try and do the same thing, and use Santander as an example for walking the talk in terms of what diversity, inclusion, sustainability, and all those words that are not just buzzwords that CSR was 10 years ago, but it's certainly serious. And I think we have a duty as advisors to our clients to really get them into that.
I have two last questions because timing is running very fast. The last one, the previous to the last one, is to invest in branding or to take care in branding and sustainability, both of them together. It's a question of size. Can multinationals or big companies do it better than smaller ones? How can we, do it in all terms, in all sizes? I don't know. We have here the opportunity to talk with you, Santander, Coca-Cola. Wallbox is smaller, it's a unicorn, but going or growing very fast. How can we tell to those companies who don't have your size and they need to embrace sustainability and take care of their brands?
This is for everybody. Can you hear me? No. It is for everybody. This is not about big brands, it's also about individuals. We as individuals has to be change agents also. Whatever we do at home, everyone has to do the same. The truth is that we, as big company, has a bigger responsibility somehow, because we can be kind of role model, to whatever we do when they're looking at us, and probably we can be the first in the line doing this kind of thing. So we have the responsibility of being the first and do the right thing. But this is for the entire society. Very quick question. Everyone should be involved.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's true that society attributes large companies to, a higher degree of responsibility and also much power to have influence on possible change. But I think it's right. We have this, big companies have this high capacity of have strong influence, but it's true that the number of large companies is smaller than that of the SMEs, for instance. And that of SMEs is even smaller than the number of 8 billion people living in that planet. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a joint effort, the one that we need. And in fact, perhaps there is an opportunity for brands to be able to explain that it's not about big companies behaving right. It's all of us joining efforts. It's an opportunity for brands to engage, to have this dialogue with audiences, for all of us to join efforts to be able to, for instance, to stop the climate change or to solve that big problems that are, we face as a human race. No?
Masood, you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. While you guys were speaking, there's really two things that come to my mind. So one, I think the size is less and less important because thanks to digital, there you can do a lot of really cool branding things and get the message out there without having incredible budgets like perhaps the ones of Coca-Cola or Santander. So I think that's one thing. In our area specifically, a lot of the first-time EV drivers, less and less so now it's becoming mainstream. But a couple of years ago, maybe you were actually being held responsible by your users who come up with ideas of how to even make it more sustainable, more energy efficient, give you ideas on product development, etc. So you make your products even better. to be more sustainable and balance out the grid further. So that's certainly, I can relate to what the other guy said in terms of, using consumers and using your customers and literally everybody to help drive sustainability in our case. And then, the other thing that came to mind in my mind, yes, we're young. We're still fairly, maybe not that small, but fairly small company. But we work in a huge industry. Of course, the automotive industry as itself is enormous. All of the OEMs, all of the governments, everybody's behind this. We're part of a bigger ecosystem, whether it's OEMs, ride-hailing companies, ourselves, charging solutions companies, e-motorcycle companies. The ecosystem is huge. So I think the potential to jointly drive those messages is critical. For us, as a company, branding is very, very important also when it comes to us working with the OEMs, because there's just different types of charging solutions companies. We are one per se that really puts emphasis on intelligent charging solutions that are really the ones that are sustainable. Getting that branding out there and finding the right partners, whether it's OEMs or utility companies or what have you in terms of our customers is absolutely critical. But being small is not so well, it's not so important, I would say, when you're as part of a much bigger industry and such an industry that's being disrupted the way it is being now as the automotive industry.
In my experience, and I've been doing this for 30 years now, companies come to us when change happens. Change is the catalyst for a brand exercise, and change happens regardless of your size. Small startups, when they've gone beyond the minimal viable product, they need a brand because a change in transformation is happening to them, and they need to go beyond the minimal viable brand. Enormous organizations, when they see themselves disrupted by the industry, say a bank disrupted by the fintech or by any other organizations of the sort, that creates a change in the industry, and this is when larger or smaller organizations in the financial sector come to us because change is happening and they need to adapt to this change. And the same thing happens in every industry. So brand, there's this myth about only rich and large organizations can afford or need to get into branding. What I need, because I'm small, is a name and a logo. And that's a mistake, because a name and a logo don't make you a brand. A brand, again, is about the experience, and the experience has to be built. And Michael spoke about this fantastic idea that IDEO came up with, which is design thinking, and how design thinking helps you devise anything you think about, because it helps you use your left and your right brain. And Daniel Kahneman made us understand, and the Swedish Academy gave him a Nobel Prize in economics for his theory in behavioral economics, and to what degree psychology has a determinant influence in the way you take decisions, you choose. And that is what brand is about. Brand is about helping you choose, help organizations convey an idea of clarity, of consistency, and any organization needs that. It's not about whether you call X or your logo is green. It's about what you stand for, what is your purpose, and how you construct this purpose through the experience. And be it small or be it Exxon Corporation, maybe Exxon is not that big anymore. Any very, very, very large organization, Amazon, brand is paramount.
Just for ending, we need to be very short. I'm going to ask you to tell me in one phrase, short phrase, by the way, what do you think is the future of branding? Wow!
What a question that can be answered in one sentence. But, well, we still need to promote and protect our brands. If I may say, probably for us in the Coca-Cola company, we have been always very close to the togetherness, optimism, and happiness values, and we'll stick to that, and that's the way for us to say what we stand for. That was the quickest I could make it.
Thank you. Jacob, you now, because you have been always the last.
The future is bright.
Thank you.
No, I mean, as long as there is change, and there will be change, and change will be about, and change will happen, brand taken from a holistic standpoint will be needed. So there's a bright future for branding.
Okay. Masood?
Yeah, for me, it's if I were to say just one word, it's authenticity. So I think branding will be more and more authentic because information is just very easily available to people. So as a brand, you just have to be authentic and genuine.
Thank you, Masood. Enrique, you are the last one.
No idea. I would say I agree, and that's all. But I have a couple of questions. How brands should perform in the metaverse, for instance? It's a challenge for all of us. Or how to end with this eternal discussion between branding and performance? What is the right balance? So I don't have any answer. Just a lot of questions, and
Let's keep going. I was going to say the same.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. I think it's been a really interesting discussion panel. Thank you very much, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Slides, please. Great. So I know we're a little bit late with time. We're going to be as fast as possible to finish as possible sharp on time. But now I would like to introduce our second and last keynote speaker of the night, Elio Leoni. Elio, thank you so much for waiting a little bit for us there. Elio will be connecting from his house right now. Elio is the Can you put 1 second back, the last slide, and then we go back? Thank you so much. Elio is the co-founder of Craftery. This is an investment group for brands in the consumer product space. He is the former CEO of Iglo Group and former director of Nomad Foods. And currently, he's also board member of several companies, such as InBev, Barry Callebaut, Room to Read, and Young One World. Today, Elio will be talking specifically about sustainable branding applied to CPG, which is consumer goods. So thank you so much, Elio, from connecting. I don't know if you're currently based in Italy or where's your home, but Elio is an Italian businessman, and thank you so much for being us with here today, also in the Thanksgiving night. Thank you.
My pleasure. Good being here. I need to see the slides so that I know which one to move. If you guys can just do it in a way perfect. Very, very good. So I'm going to gallop through 15 charts and give you 3 messages. One is, what is a brand? The second is, why is sustainability essential to the concept of brand? And the third is why consumer goods is a good place to be, because it can make a real difference. And I hope these messages will help in your moment of life, whether about work or professional decisions. And that's the context in which I will be speaking. So brand and sustainability is the heart of what the Craftery is. I've been for 30 years in consumer goods, Procter & Gamble, Reckitt Benckiser. I'm on the board of large companies that have been mentioned before, plus Kraft Heinz and others. But we founded with a co-founder, the Craftery, to invest in challenger brands in consumer goods. And this challenge very often expresses itself through sustainability, ESG. So this is where my current passion, work, and interest and time is focused. And I'd like to share a few things with you about that. So what is a brand? Very often a brand is referred to a product, a function, an experience. As we heard all of those words, but the way I like to think about it is that a brand is more than that. A brand is a set of values that reflects our belief, and it projects our beliefs and our image to others. So it has moved from being a rational interpretation, a functional interpretation, to being a wider thing that represents us and projects our image to others. And in this chart, you see a little bit what this means. You have to the left all of those rational expression. It works. It doesn't work. If it's a laundry detergent, it removes stain. Stain here, stain gone. If it's Nurofen, it's pain here, pain gone. And it can also be, of course, negative, right? It's difficult to use. I don't like that. Those are all the functional things. But to the right side, you have all of those expressions that start to represent the brand as a set of values. For example, I love their mission. I'm obsessed with their brands. It projects, the best part of me and so many others that could, be on that space. So you have rational and you have emotional. The combination of that relationship within consumers and brands creates a bond that goes way beyond the act of purchase. And that bond is why brands are to be thought as a set of values that represents who we are and projects it to others. So let me say also, what is CPG, what is consumer packaged goods, and what is ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. So the term sustainability that we've been talking about, at today's conference and very much so recently across the world, is ESG, sustainability, two synonymous to express the same concept, which is our responsibilities to the outside world and the stakeholders with whom we interact, whether this being planet, whether this being other people or society at large. So what is in the middle of this chart is CPG, consumer packaged goods. So the question that we've asked ourselves is, how do we apply sustainability, ESG, to the consumer goods world? Because one of the things that you've heard a lot and is very important is that with everybody talking about sustainability, there is a serious risk of what is greenwashing, of talking about things that actually you cannot influence or actually don't mean to influence in reality. So if, for example, with our investment holding, we would try to promote interfaith dialogues, that would be great, but it's actually not possible to do it through consumer goods. So it would be an attempt to do something which doesn't resonate in the core of our activities. So if you apply consumer goods as a filter through ESG, we came to 5 causes, so 5 areas that we can impact. Those being delivering good health. All of the things that you eat and drink, of course, go inside your body, can go inside your body, leaving a good or a bad, impact. So delivering good health is number 1. Number 2 there is championing self-esteem. This means debunking taboos and making sure that the utilization of product and the consumption of such product express who you are, and you don't have to fake yourself or feel that you are, at the wrong place at the wrong time by using a product. So just promoting self-esteem, whoever you are, whatever is expression and preferences, that consumer should enhance them and support them. The third is progressing society. The typical example is there are some long supply chain in chocolate, in, coffee, in a number of products. And sometimes the supply chain goes into faraway markets where it's very difficult to control if, for example, children or, human rights are violated, or there is, elements of that supply chain that are not ethical. So progressing society is removing that and make sure that we live in a more equitable and respectful society at large. Democratizing access, which is to create prices and access that allows for the many to find what normally would be restricted to the few. And then the last one is prosper sustainably, which is on the environment. You can think about removing plastic. That's a typical example. And of course, there are many others, but, helping the planet. So in the next couple of charts, I'm going to make the same point very quickly and a couple of times. And that point is that ESG sustainability is fundamental to the long-term sustainability, even economic sustainability on top of brand sustainability of brands. In consumer goods, which is a $15 trillion category in developed world, 16% of the brands could be called eco-branded product. They have a statement about eco impact. That 16% has generated 55%, so more than 3 times fair share of the growth over the last 5 years. That tells you how the world preference and consumer preference have changed over this time. In these other charts, it says how important is consumer goods? And as I said, I'm going to put a plug to consumer goods as a category for many of you that could make a difference and want to do it in a place where that difference could be real. Because consumer goods touches everybody's life multiple times a day, everywhere in the world. The continent, the area where this is more obvious is the United States. In the United States, each consumer on average interact 42 times a day with a consumer good. 42 times a day. And that same consumer consumes way more than the average in other categories. There is 156 plastic bottles in a year that the average consumer consumes, 100 kilos of meat, 140 toilet paper rolls, 420 sanitary protection products. Just to give you an example, the sanitary protection products for baby diapers or for adults in combination represent 6% of the landfill globally. So if there is no difference there, a real change cannot happen because that impact is huge. And importantly, over the course of the last few years, and you see this just over the pandemic period to the right, you have an increase of the e-commerce part of the consumer goods that have gone to 44%. These are an enormous number. It implies that there is such a growing and widening reach of those products that if they do not improve on an ESG, on a sustainability impact front, the world ahead is going to suffer. So what are the key things in consumer goods that matter? Historically, for the last 100 years, for the last 30 years that I've been in this business, there are basically three things that consumer wanted: performance, convenience, or value. Performance meaning the product works. What I defined before as stain here, stain gone. Pain here, pain gone. Yeah, that's performance. Convenience is about the packaging is delivered, is about being delivered at home, is ease of access and ease of use. And value is, of course, a combination of price, low price for performance, or even medium price for high performance. It's a combination of price and performance. So this is how the triangle of, if you want, interest from a consumer perspective has always worked. But what happened over the last few years, I would say probably 5, and the SDGs that have been defined before, the Sustainable Development Goal that the United Nations and everybody else have adopted over the last 5 years were real accelerator of that. And the new drivers are ESG ethics, so sustainability, what we're talking about today, but also a lot social profile, because if you believe that brands are a set of values that represents yourself and projects your image to others, then such social profile being so centered and central to everybody's life today, whether in social network or representation in the digital space of ourselves, then the brands that you use, the brands that are pictured with you, the brands that are referred to in your post or whatever communication are an indication of your own value and sets of values. Therefore, social profile is also in a way sustainability. And local versus global is also in a way linked to sustainability, because the local community and their success and development and progress are increasingly important in the world that we're living in. So these are the elements that drives growth and purchase and preference in consumer goods, globally. So this is true across categories, and is true increasingly so across generation. So if you take a look at it across categories, to the left, you see food and non-alcoholic beverages. 45% of respondents have stopped purchasing brands due to ESG concerns. So for the previous speakers of Coca-Cola or for others that are involved, that means that there is 45% of consumers that if there is not actions, if there are no actions, if there are no evidence, like the one that was shared before about things changing, they will lose half of their consumers for that purpose. And if you take a look at apparel, it's 42, at beauty and personal care products is 38, and everyday other household items is 29%. So huge numbers across, but clearly the higher the impacts, the higher the amounts, food and beverages are the one that have higher frequency, high volume across the globe, of course, the higher is the consumer reaction. The good news is that to the right, consumers are also aware that in order to deliver those eco improvements, you can premium price, and they're willing to pay up to 165% premium in carbonated drinks, 135 in laundry, 134 in pet, and so on and so forth. So there is a significant amount of price inelasticity, or price willingness to accept premium for the right reasons, if there is true change in the way that those brands and products are addressing the problem. The next chart is about, if you want, generation. And to the right side, you see that to the 18 to 34, I suppose most of you will fall in that bracket, 76% of you define sustainability and social impact as important or very important when making purchasing decision. That is almost everybody. This is 3 out of 4. And if you take a look to the right, which is my generation, 55 plus, only 45% of us, 1 in 2, thought that it was important or not important, which is a very key point today and in this type of conversation, because the voices of change about sustainability across the globe today are still with people of my generation. And some of us have embraced and passionately delivered this, mission and message. But we come from a generation where this has not been part of our DNA. You have it in your DNA. So the moment that you will take those leadership positions, you will have the leading voice on those topics. That moment will be the real moment of tipping point of change, and will spread this sustainability as everyday language, the same way that convenience, price, or value have been until now. So this ESG to the left side, around the 3 performance, convenience, value that I referred to, is because it encompasses them all, and importantly builds on them all. It doesn't replace any of that, but it is an additional, a 4th essential element for the growth of brand across time. These trends are easier for small challenger brands than for bigger brands, and the reason is very simply that those brands have grown in more recent times and therefore have made sustainability part of their DNA. The brands on the lower part of this chart have been around for hundreds of years and therefore have gone through periods of time in which this was not obviously needed and as part of the DNA. This has not been done for bad faith or anything. I mean, I've been with companies that have great values and ethics. It's just that 20 years ago, honestly, this topic was not on the agenda. The evidence of the damage that have been created was just not part of the information or the conversation. And therefore, without data and without priority, the companies did not look at this as an essential element, and they push consumption without thinking of the consequences of consumption. And now those consequences are obvious, and so every brand, every responsible player in this industry is thinking about it, whether new brands on the top part of this chart or established big brands like in the bottom part of this chart. But the truth is that for the one on the top, it's easier because the language comes more authentic and the DNA already includes that message as part of who they are. There is also an economic sustainability that is important, and that economic sustainability is essential for that brand to last over time and therefore deliver the impact over time. And the economic sustainability of a consumer goods brand, but I would dare to say of pretty much every brand that has a consumer facing and not a B2B, so B2C, business to consumer brands, builds on 3 things: awareness, trial, and repeat. Quite obvious, but important to realize how essential and vital those 3 things are, because if you do not build the awareness of a brand and you try and chase trial, first-time purchase, maybe with digital through some focused performance, transactional, paid social type of effort, you will get that short-term, bump in sales, but you will not be able to sustain it because you do not have the awareness to build it upon. And if then your product doesn't deliver on the expectation both in terms of performance, but also the other reasons for purchase, then you will not get that repeat, which in digital terms is called retention. So this is a triangle of important economic sustainability, which has to underline and support the ESG type of sustainability so that it can be delivered over time and with impact. Such triangle is all important, of course, but there is one that is more important than others, a sort of a premium, a first amongst peers, if you want, which is repeats. And why is that important? Because awareness and trial can be bought. You can spend a lot of money in advertising and overall people at the end will remember your name. You can spend a lot of money in generating sample and trials. You can give it for free in hypermarkets and supermarkets and online and somebody will get it. But there is no chance that a consumer will buy potato chips that taste like rubber, right? So repeat is an indication that the essential benefits that your product stands for is delivered with satisfaction of the consumer. So coming to the end, ESG, sustainability, is no longer a nice to have. 3 consumers out of 4 calls it important. 50% of consumers are willing to not make a purchase if it is not there, and so on and so forth. Therefore, is an essential part of what brand building is. And they're not 2 separate concepts anymore. ESG is fundamental to brand building, and brand building must include ESG in order to be successful over time upon that, both sustainable and economic model that I briefly chat. So let me skip this last chart and go to the conclusion, which is really that brands are built over time. And it is important in brand building to consider that like a friendship between individuals takes time to build and takes transparency, authenticity, and clarity of who you are in order to relate to another human being that you can call friend after time. The same thing with brands. You need to do that with the consciousness of the time it takes to make that message heard and make the message believed and make that message trusted. And you need to have a distinctive voice, because that distinctive voice will realize who you are, and you have to speak with that voice consistently in order to not confuse others about what you stand for. And that sustainability is an essential part of the vocabulary, of the tone of voice that every brand have to have, because as important as it is in consumers' life today, is an essential part of what the brand has to say if the brand has to win. So time, distinctiveness, and sustainability will make brand relevant and will make brand win. And with that, I thank you for your attention and wish you all the best in your choices, hoping that it will go in a sustainable and consumer goods area. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Elio, for your very interesting presentation. I think it really complemented well all the content that we saw before. And now we're about to close our event. The first thing I want to say before we leave and before I give the floor to my colleague Cristina is that we are on the Thanksgiving week and night. So today I just want to take 1 minute to thank all the amazing team that really worked hard to make this forum take place. Our global recruitment marketing team, global markets team, South Summit team, Nacho Mateo, Begoña, González Cuesta, Cristina Vicedo, thank you so much, and all the people that I'm not mentioning but that you were part of this forum. And now, last but not least, I'm going to give the floor again to Cristina Vicedo. As I previously said, she's the president of Aebrand, academic director at AI, and founder and CEO of Sincerely. She's going to do all the introduction and presentation of the awards. Now we're going to give the awards to the top brands in terms of sustainability and branding. Thank you so much, Cristina.
Thank you very much, Carla. Now I'm going to put the hat as president of Aebrand, and I'm going to change also the language. Sé que hemos estado toda la tarde haciendo la presentación en inglés, madre mía, y ahora vamos a cambiar al español porque somos la Asociación Española de Branding. Hemos querido hacer un evento que fuera internacional, un evento que representara el lugar en el que nos encontramos. Estamos en el IE University y la IE Tower. Lo tengo que decir en inglés porque tiene que ser en inglés, ¿verdad, Carla? ¿Verdad, Begoña? Y lo hemos hecho porque además creo que eso nos puede ayudar también a que todos los que trabajamos en branding aprendamos también un poco de los de fuera y que de los de fuera también aprendan de nosotros. Quiero dar las gracias, en primer lugar, a estar aquí, a estar en este entorno. Quiero agradecer tremendamente, y yo voy a decir nombres, Carla, sé que no debería hacerlo, pero voy a agradecer tremendamente y en primer lugar a Begoña González Cuesta, que subirá después a entregar un premio, por ser la primera persona que confió en Aebrand para hacer este evento. Después de Begoña han venido muchas personas. Carla Senso, que la habéis conocido ahora mismo, Blanca Cubillo, Lucía Malmierca, Sofía Ketglas, Nacho Mateo, Rosa Arana y muchos más. Me voy a dejar la parte del equipo técnico. Muchísimas gracias a todos, a Startup Spain, que son los encargados además de celebrar siempre el South Summit en esta casa. Y voy a llamarla casa porque yo me encuentro como si estuviera en mi casa, mi segunda casa. Llevo 12 años con el IE como profesora, 1 año y pico como directora académica, conjuntamente con ser presidenta de Aebrand. Y me siento muy orgullosa de estar hoy aquí y de estar dando los primeros premios Aebrand. Son unos premios que nos ha costado mucho sacar y que voy a ir agradeciendo por el camino a muchas personas. Y gracias por recordarme que estamos en Thanksgiving. A mí me encanta dar las gracias. Creo que nunca lo decimos lo suficientes veces, el dar gracias a los demás. Y voy a ir diciéndolo en el proceso en que vaya dando los premios, pero quiero dar gracias sobre todo a los que estáis aquí. A los que estáis aquí y a los que estáis allí, en el streaming, por estar aquí con nosotros y por seguir este evento. Aebrand es una asociación que surgió en el año 2010 con 8 compañías valientes que decidieron montarla y particularmente por una persona que luego entregará también un premio, cuyo nombre es Víctor Mirabet y que está hoy sentado entre el público. Gracias, Víctor, por haber empujado a esta asociación a existir y a que hoy estemos aquí todos. Esta asociación le ha faltado empuje. Estos premios quieren darle ese empuje. Además de empuje, reconocimiento. Surgimos para promover, defender y establecer un poco las reglas de lo que el branding es, no solamente respecto a instituciones y organismos políticos, económicos y sociales, sino también para los que formamos parte de la asociación. Somos muy jóvenes, llevamos 11 años. Desde aquí lanzo la invitación a todos aquellos que pertenecéis a la profesión, a que forméis parte de ella, a que os asociéis, porque juntos vamos a llegar mucho más lejos. Y esto va de clientes y de agencias y de freelancers y de autónomos y de todo lo que queráis llamarlo. Somos todos aquellos que hacemos branding a cabo del día. Y quiero decir otro segundo mensaje, y es que tenemos que darle el lugar al branding que se merece, y particularmente en nuestro país. Creo que hay mucho intrusismo y no quiero hablarlo desde la rivalidad, quiero hablarlo desde la colaboración, desde la co-creación, como hemos visto en algunas de las presentaciones que han compartido con nosotros anteriormente. Creo que entre todos podemos llegar más lejos, pero siempre respetando cada disciplina. El marketing es el marketing, el branding es el branding. Y el marketing puede ser un camino para afianzar el branding, pero el branding también tiene que tener ese lugar. Estos premios van a querer reconocer que hay un gran trabajo de branding hecho y que ese trabajo tiene que seguir creciendo y que espero que lo sigamos haciendo por muchos años. Paso ya directamente a explicaros la mecánica. Ya suelta mi discurso político y correcto. No, espero que lo compartáis porque lo he dicho muy seriamente y creo de verdad que como presidenta de esta asociación es mi obligación compartirlo con vosotros y espero que lo compartáis vosotros conmigo. La mecánica ha sido muy sencilla. Hemos establecido 6 categorías que iré explicándoos delante de categoría qué es lo que ha consistido y hemos recibido unas más de 100 candidaturas aproximadamente y hemos tenido un jurado fantástico y maravilloso, al cual también voy a agradecer de nuevo su participación. Van a ir entrando en cada uno de los premios. Echaremos de menos a 2 personas del jurado que hoy no están con nosotros: Carlos Chaguaceda, director de comunicación del Museo del Prado, e Isabel Alcázar, que es la Head of Sustainability del Instituto de Empresa. Lo siento que no estén aquí, los otros 4 van a estar con nosotros y los vais a conocer en breve. Ana Cayol, vicepresidenta de Sostenibilidad y Public Affairs de Coca-Cola European Partners, Xavi Olazábal, el presidente de House of Brands, Víctor Mirabet, consultor senior de branding y gran experto, y Pablo López, el presidente y director general, ya te cambio el puesto, Pablo, te vendrá pronto, del Foro de Marcas Renombradas. Muchas gracias a todos por vuestra profesionalidad juzgando y analizando los trabajos. Hemos establecido 4 criterios. Un criterio que era la estrategia. Una marca no es marca si no hay una estrategia detrás. La idea, también hemos querido que fuera una idea implementable, aplicable. La experiencia de esa marca, cómo se ha declinado en cada punto de contacto, y luego hemos visto algunos resultados. No todas las marcas que se han presentado tenían resultados. A veces la marca, como bien ha explicado Elio, se construye a lo largo del tiempo, y cuando han presentado las candidaturas a lo mejor no había resultados todavía. Pero se han seguido esos 4 criterios, y además de seguir esos 4 criterios hemos intentado preguntar también al público. No porque el público fuera a ser una votación vinculante. Al público le hemos preguntado porque sabéis que a veces, pues oye, la marca que profesionalmente mejor está hecha, siguiendo las reglas del libro, por decirlo de alguna manera, pues no es la marca que más encanta. Bueno, pues vamos a considerar también esa votación popular, porque nos ha ayudado de alguna manera, que sorprendentemente vais a ver, coincide en muchas ocasiones con las marcas que también el jurado ha elegido. No me voy a enrollar mucho más. Aquí sí que voy a necesitar papeles porque, como comprenderéis, mi cabeza ya no me da para acordarme de todas las marcas. Y voy a empezar en primer lugar por un reconocimiento especial, particularmente a 2 personas que me gustaría que subieran al escenario conmigo, y como he dicho anteriormente, he dicho algunos nombres con respecto al Instituto de Empresa y a Startup Spain, pero sobre todo creo que han dado mucho y se lo merecen. Quiero que suba al escenario Bárbara Escandela, que es la directora de comunicación de Aebrand, perdón, ya te iba a llamar del IE. Y quiero que suba también Carlos Baud, que es el CEO y founder de Baud. Carlos Corral. Muchas gracias, y le voy a decir, me están regañando porque no lo sabían. Muchas gracias porque los 2 han ayudado muchísimo, tanto a la organización, la creación, como a la respuesta de todas las preguntas que nos han hecho muchos de los socios, para las respuestas, para todo. Así que muchas gracias a ellos y un fuerte aplauso, por favor. Venga, sin más, voy a pedir a Xavier Olazábal que suba conmigo, porque empezamos por la primera categoría, que es la categoría de creación de marca, que hemos tratado de elegir aquella marca que como reconocimiento, aquella organización, que ha sabido desarrollar e introducir una nueva marca en el mercado. Es decir, organización que ha introducido una nueva marca en el mercado. Esta marca puede ser marca corporativa o marca de producto, y lo he hecho a través de un planteamiento estratégico diferencial. Vamos a enseñaros primero la lista corta, que fue el primer ejercicio que hizo el jurado. La lista corta está compuesta por Raíz Cuadrada, Urban Poke y WeBuy. Y el ganador es WeBuy de Gravita. Sí, dos. Se me ha olvidado comentar anteriormente que entregamos premio tanto a la agencia como al cliente. Creemos mucho en la labor de co-creación y por eso damos la enhorabuena, no me sé los nombres, de la gente de CaixaBank, que son los responsables de WeBuy. Beatriz, encantada. Mucho gusto. El del cliente. Iván, por favor. Iván Díaz, de Gravitan. Colócate, Xavier, foto. Muchas gracias. Más para allá, por favor. Es que si no la tele... Más. Ahí va. Gracias. Muchas gracias. En este caso, la votación popular era para Urban Poke, ¿vale? Simplemente se hace una mención, la votación popular, como he dicho, no era vinculante. Pasamos a la segunda categoría. La segunda categoría voy a invitar a Víctor Mirabet a que suba al escenario conmigo para la entrega del premio. Gracias, Víctor. La segunda categoría es reposicionamiento de marca, reconocimiento de aquella organización que ha sabido revitalizar su marca corporativa o de producto y articular el cambio de marca de manera creíble y orientada a las nuevas necesidades de la organización. Y la lista corta es IFEMA, de Madrid, Vitas y Melilla, una marca de destino, una marca turística de destino. Y el premio es para IFEMA, de Brantford. Por favor, cliente y agencia. Ismael. En este caso tengo que decir que la votación popular es totalmente coincidente, ¿vale? Aquí la votación popular ha coincidido con el premio ganador de reposicionamiento de marca. Encantada. Nos ponemos un poco más para allá, para la foto. Gracias. Para acá. Venid para acá. Muchas gracias. Pasamos a la tercera categoría, que ya sé que estáis todos un poco cansados y seguro que tenemos ganas de ir a tomar algo. Categoría Impacto Social. Distinción de aquella marca que ha demostrado dar respuesta con las acciones emprendidas a alguno de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible del 2030 de los que tanto hemos hablado hoy, con el objetivo de tener un impacto positivo en la sociedad más allá de su propósito como organización. Invito a que suba aquí al escenario conmigo otra persona del jurado, Pablo López, por favor, director general del Foro de Marcas Renombradas. Gracias, Pablo. La lista corta es Shido, Women Action Sustainability y UNICEF. Y el ganador es Shido, hecho por Baud. Son dos. En esta categoría, el premio de la votación popular iba para UNICEF. Vamos para allá. Encantada, gracias. Gracias. Uno para vosotros y el otro para Carlos. Gracias. ¿Ya? Gracias. Venga, gracias. La cuarta categoría es experiencia de marca. Y voy a invitar a Begoña González Cuesta que suba al escenario conmigo. Por favor, Begoña. La experiencia de marca es el reconocimiento a aquella marca que ha sabido construir una experiencia de marca relevante más allá del propio producto o servicio. Y la lista corta es Grillaera, Les Arts y Vueling. Y el ganador es Les Arts, de Càrtica. La votación popular en este caso era para Vueling. Vamos a acercarnos para allá. Enrique. Enhorabuena. De nada. Enhorabuena. Enhorabuena. Encantada. Enhorabuena. ¿Y el otro? Luego para el cliente. Para el cliente. Como entregamos uno para el cliente y otro para la agencia, por el trabajo realizado conjunto. Pero bueno. Gracias. Y por último, tenemos la categoría de marca interna. Bueno, perdona, penúltimo, que me queda otro. Mejor marca interna, que invito a Ana Cayol a que suba conmigo al escenario. Gracias, Ana. En esta categoría hemos valorado aquella marca empleadora que ha incorporado su esencia a todos sus empleados y ha sabido transmitir de arriba abajo su cultura de marca a través de valores, actitudes y conductas que se comparten en la organización y que inspira la toma de decisiones. Aquí tenemos dos finalistas. Grupo Antolín y Ferrer, y el ganador es Grupo Antolín. En este caso es un trabajo realizado internamente por la compañía, por eso no tenemos agencia, pero vamos a invitarla a que la próxima vez lo haga con una agencia. Vamos para allá. Cuando tenga presupuesto, voy a darle una paliza a este hombre. Ponte en medio. Gracias, Fernando. Y ahora sí que va la última. Quisimos incorporar, y son unas pequeñas palabras, quisimos incorporar un premio a la mejor marca hispanoamericana, porque nos sentimos un poco con las ganas de abrir la asociación, y lo digo desde la presidencia de la Junta, hacia todo lo que es hispanoparlante. Es verdad que hemos tenido que trabajar mucho en todos estos premios y no nos ha dado mucha ocasión a tratar de contactar con muchos países latinoamericanos para que participaran en estos premios. Creo que en la próxima edición, si la hay, que espero que sí, podamos empujar un poco más a que otros países de hispanoparlantes participen en estos premios. Hemos tenido a dos candidaturas y voy a invitar a que suba al escenario conmigo, presentar el premio a Carla Ascenso. Carla, ya que hemos estado aquí toda la tarde, vamos a compartir el último premio. En la marca hispanoamericana la intención era votar a aquella marca que realmente hubiera conseguido trasladar esa imagen de marca no solo en un país, sino en lo que es la zona latinoamericana. No tuvimos muchas candidaturas, como ya hemos dicho, entonces las marcas finalistas son dos: Curiara y Grupo Ramos. Y el ganador es Grupo Ramos de Brandware. Vamos por ahí.
Con COVID.
Que no debo dar besos. El COVID nos va a matar. Gracias. A ti. Señores, señoras, me ha sido un placer tenerles aquí. Es la primera edición. Yo sé que vamos a seguir dando guerra. Espero volver a veros a todos cuando lo volvamos a hacer. Y muchísimas gracias al Instituto de Empresa, a la iTower, a la iUniversity y por favor todos a tomar un vino. Muchas gracias. Los ganadores, perdonadme que me matan, los ganadores al escenario hacer una foto. Un cliente y uno de agencia por lo menos, por favor, y el jurado, por favor. Los demás podéis empezar con la copa de vino. Tú quédate tú, pero quédate.